Good morning, everybody. So I was just thinking that we have less people here, and I realized that it is no different from an after lunch session because number of people paying attention is the same. So in one case they are physically present, but you are very present, that is more important. The other thing, Praveen wrongly said that I'm the right person to moderate this session, in the sense that, I have such stellar credentials sitting along with me, I look forward to learn. There used to be a joke when we were doing chemical engineering, that when chemical engineers are with chemists, they tell them we are engineers. And when they are with engineers, they say we are chemists. And unfortunately, I have both categories with me, so I'll do the moderation. Anyway, so getting started on the topic, Praveen, we are not going to cut our time because all our panel members came on time. So, it's a very, very interesting time. And I'm also going to start off with saying a few things. These people are going to obviously talk about great detail. And I believe that the chemical industry is actually the sunrise industry today. It was in the 40s, 50s, 60s when a lot of new products came in. They gave us tremendous conveniences in life, right? From polyester to nylon to plastics to agrochemicals to pharma, so on and so forth. In the 90s, we said this is sunset. We are going to do computer, digital technology, and everything else. And we actually felt that we were part of a sunset industry. Now, the way the world has changed is that we still need the same conveniences. We have a number of challenges, but we cannot use the same products and the same processes. So in my view, we are heading for the next couple of decades of tremendous innovation in the chemical industry at breakneck speed breakthroughs. And it is because there is no choice. Some people will fall by the wayside, but you will have some amazing people do amazing things, which you will see. We are going through a time of radical change. Two factors are driving this radical change. I like to talk about it despite the fact that I've spoken about it before, is that people should know why they are doing what they are doing. That is more important. Because then everything else will follow. So I want to briefly touch upon sustainability. It is a crisis like nothing ever before. Nothing, not even India's fight for independence and so on. To give you an example, I was reading relatively recently that the 2022 was the hottest year on the planet. And there were some numbers, and before I come to that numbers, it said that we released or absorbed 10.9 zetajoules of energy. Now what does that mean? I don't know. But then I did some calculation, and they had done some calculations. I did it again to check, and it is more or less there. See, oceans absorb 90% of the energy that is released. And the amount of energy the oceans are having to absorb? It is equivalent to roughly 5 Hiroshima equivalent atomic bombs per second. Let that sink in. We are also going through a time of mass extinction. We never think about it. We are losing something like 150 to 200 species per day, 50,000 species per year, insects, plants. Now, species have always become extinct. It is not new, but this is 1,000 times the base rate. 1,000 times the base rate, roughly. Just one or two parameters more to highlight the point. Of course, we can talk about many, many things, and it is not only about carbon. Certainly, everybody is only talking about net zero. 80% of the groundwater in China is not fit to touch. Groundwater is impossible to remedy. Now, I'm not saying China because I'm against China. I think we've got a lot to learn from them. We've got our own problems. And without getting into details, there's a train which runs from Bathinda to Bikaner, which is called the Cancer Express. You might like to check the details because we don't have time and not spending much time. So I think it is a real crisis in terms of what will drive radical change. Believe me, 20 years from now, our children, you are going to look back and see, is this how we lived? And the other thing I want to say is that there is tremendous, on the positive side, development happening in technology. You all know about digital technologies. I think it's phenomenal amount of work that digital and AI is influencing everything that we do, right from healthcare to crop care to everything else. From a chemical engineer's perspective, apart from digital or chemical industry's perspective, carbon capture technologies are phenomenal. India has a great opportunity to capture that carbon, to produce a great amount of green hydrogen and create new chemistries through it. Hydrogen, carbon, captured green hydrocarbons. Biotechnology is going to drive the future. Biofabrication, for example, 3D printing, for example. So I think there's a time of tremendous change. I talked about sustainability, and quite often people talk about, people don't like to pay the cost. I just told you about the cost. It is not that people don't like to pay the cost. It is not, we are not paying the cost. Digging something out and spilling it over is not equal to cost of digging. Right now we take the cost as cost of digging, not the cost of actually what it is doing to us. And I have told you what we are doing to ourselves. And we'll pay the cost whether we like it or not, either through wisdom or through misery. There are no two ways about it. The choice is ours. The reason I say this here is because there is a saying in English, no revolution ever was led by a monarch. We have to make that change happen. We don't care whether somebody at the top or boards or prime ministers make the change. It will happen only when we want to make the change. And our R&D colleagues have a great role to play. It is called Next Generation. So interestingly, I wanted to go back to ancient India and also reflect upon the first ever book known on what could be the purpose statement or mission statement for sustainability. And I'm going to read out something and then tell you what it is. And it is so very nice. Paryavarana nashena nashyanti sarvajantavah pavanah dushtatam yati prakriti vikritayate sanrakshet dushito na sayalokah manavajivanam nako api kasyachid nasham kuryad arthasya siddhaye. Now this is from the Vedas, Rig Veda, Atharva Vedas. What does it say? And I'll tell you why I read this out. It says that in short, if we destroy the environment, eventually all life and living beings are destroyed. Are we seeing it? And air and water and our environment becomes dushta or damaging, toxic, vicious. And nature become hostiles. Remember Uttarakhand, Himachal? Sanrakshite dushito. We must preserve and protect our beautiful world and Manav Jeevanam, mankind. But it is not worth it to sacrifice and pollute and damage our environment at the cost of short-term wealth gains. Said thousands of years ago. How relevant it is today? We are saying we are rediscovering our ancient. Can there be a better mission statement? So wonderful. So coming to India's needs and challenges, I will not describe in great detail. People here are going to talk about it. India has great needs. We've got so many people. We have to feed them. We have to house them. We have to take care of their health. We've got our challenges in terms of water, in terms of food scarcity, etc., etc. And I think the chemical industry, if you see, has a great role to play to meet India's needs, to exploit India's opportunities, and also to meet India's aspirations. So therefore, it is a great opportunity. Coming to what I read, I think India's great opportunity in short is to deliver sustainable models. That is also in the ethos of this country. And it is also a need of the world. And the other, we must create knowledge-based countries. Those times when I used to say speciality used to be loan and license. Loan mil gaya, license mil gaya, log rakh lo, karkhana laga do. Those times are gone. The great thing is knowledge, people is going to be the new speciality. Capital is commodity. I think that's a very interesting change. In the last, I'm going to leave you with one thought. What does Bharat mean? We all know where the name came from. And it is very so relevant for this discussion. Bharata means, Bha stands for Agni, meaning light of knowledge. Rat means dedicated. So, the people or the civilization that is dedicated to bearing the light of knowledge. That is what I think we should aspire for. It's just motivating for me. I don't have as much knowledge as those people, so I thought I'll just start off by telling some stories. And with that, I'll head to asking my panelists questions, and they will put across their points to you. So my first question is to Dr. Sanjay Kamble. He has a huge amount of experience in process intensification, process development, and also using advanced technology for wastewater management. Dr. Kamble, my question to you is, novel processes is going to be one of the key. Some light on and educate us on how novel processes and process intensification is helping us drive improvement to not only improve our businesses, but also drive the sustainability agenda.
Hello, good morning. Thank you, Saraswat, for the question. So basically, you already told about what are the challenges for chemical industry. Basically, high capital investment, then utility requirement, energy requirement, and environmental pollution. So to solve this problem, there is need to develop sustainable, innovative process for the manufacturing of chemicals and materials. Basically, this we can do by process intensification. You know that process intensification means development of advanced or improved equipment or technology, which will be enhance the manufacturing performance in terms of reduction of energy requirement, then cost, that size of the equipment is compact, or you can say that pollution, wastewater generation is minimum, so that we can achieve a desired quality product. So in another word, process intensification you can define as, suppose if you want to produce any chemicals, so you should achieve good yield, selectivity and purity of a particular chemical by manipulating relevant rate of transfer. So that we can get a desired product. So here I am going to give some of the example where NCL has done really process intensification, because everybody is talking about process intensification. Because if you see, many processes are old and they are doing batch mode of operation. So batch mode of operation for manufacturing, there are many disadvantages, like batch to batch variation is there. So quality of the product also changes. Then footprint of the plant is very big, and utility requirement is very high. So in NCL, what we have done, we have developed sustainable continuous process. Our intention is to convert batch process to continuous process. I'll give a couple of examples. As you know that paracetamol is a known molecule which are manufactured across the world. But most of the process is a batch process, and lot of effluents are generated, as well as the cost restriction is there, and there are many issues. So in NCL, what we have done, we have developed continuous process for the manufacture of paracetamol using multifunctional reactor. The beauty of this process is that overall cost of the process is very low. Second thing, wastewater generation we have minimized, and basically footprint of the plant is very small. So based upon that, we have transferred this technology to industry, and presently in the industry is in the process to develop commercial pilot plant for the manufacture of paracetamol. So again, for paracetamol, required raw material is PAP. So presently in India, there is a lot of restriction availability of raw material, because presently we are purchasing paracetamol, PAP from China. So we, as a government, we want substitute. We should manufacture PAP in India. So this is again challenge. We want to do the backward integration. So there are basically two routes for the manufacture of PAP. One is PNCB route, another one is nitrobenzene route. But nobody is up to the commercial level, because again there are challenges like wastewater and utility requirement, as well as overall cost. So NCL, we are developing sustainable process for the manufacture of PAP using PNCB route, where we have developed good approach to recycle and reuse of the water, because water is the major challenge for many chemical industry, because wastewater is generated. I think we are just changing the pollutant from one phase to another phase. So it is better to prevent the pollution instead of creating the pollution. And second thing, we have developed a catalyst in such a way that the catalyst we can recycle many times. So now we are in the developing stage, but I hope maybe within maybe less than 1 year we can able to develop sustainable indigenous process for the manufacture of PAP. And I'll give another example. We have, you know that bisphenol A is important bulk chemicals, and which is required for epoxy resin as well as polycarbonate. But India, nobody was manufacturing because there are many challenges and indigenous technology is not available. So as a part of CSR mission project, we have developed continuous process for the manufacture of bisphenol A using catalysts. And the beauty of this process is that the catalysts can be recycled many times, and we have developed pilot plant, and the product was achieved in such a way that whatever the specification required for epoxy resin that we have achieved. And the product is also tested by industry and found that the specifications are matching. And based upon that, we also filed Indian patent because downstream processing, purity of bisphenol is very important. So for process industry, only not just for production of the chemical, but purity and downstream processing is also important aspect. Recently, we are working on anti-diabetic drug. As you know that diabetic malady is a very huge problem across the world, and India, we have many patients. So presently, metformin hydrochloride used as a drug. But now there is a new drug coming to the market that is imiglin hydrochloride. Again, there are only few patents are available, and in India, we don't have the process. So we have taken this challenge and a couple of industry approach to NCL, and we have developed a heterogeneous catalytic continuous process for the manufacturing for imiglin hydrochloride. And now we are in the stage to separation of this isomer. Again, there are some issue, but I hope maybe in a couple of years we can develop the sustainable process for this manufacture of imiglin so that we can serve the needs for our country. Next, an important aspect you are discussed about wastewater treatment, because many industry, nobody interested into paying money for treatment of the water, but they are creating pollutant. So basically, in NCL, myself and my colleague Dr. Bandari, as well as Dr. Ranade, presently he is not in NCL, but is in abroad. But we have developed a sustainable process for the treatment of industrial wastewater, because conventional method like primary, secondary, and tertiary treatments are not efficient. Because cost and utility requirements are. Again, here we have developed like cavitation-based technique. Vertex technology has been developed and which is successfully used for various purposes. For example, this cavitation-based technology were used for increase the gas yield for distilleries paint wash. So because presently that biogas is very important, methane, basically for transportation. So using, if you use cavitation device, you can increase the gas yield about 20%, and which is used for such kind of manufacturing. Another for treatment of pharmaceutical industry or other industry, we have used our advanced oxygen process successfully so that we can mitigate the problem and recycle and reuse the water. And we are also working on treatment, disinfection of water, and based upon our Ayurveda, we have used some oil with cavitation so that we can remove the bacteria and virus from the water. So such kind of work is going on. Apart from that, NCL Hydrogen Mission project is going on. Our director is leading for that project. Our intention is to develop indigenous fuel cell, so that cost of the fuel cell should be minimum as compared to whatever the global benchmark. And recently, by using our fuel cell, that bus is already developed and run in Pune city, and that project was inaugurated by our Science and Technology Minister. In NCL, we are also working on conversion of biomass into value-added product. Basically, scientists are working conversion of biomass to xylitol or HMF or FDCA as well as microcrystalline cellulose. That work is going on. And few scientists are working on basically lithium-ion battery. Instead of lithium-ion battery, some scientists are working to develop sodium-ion battery. So cost of the battery should be compact. That work is going on, and as well as recycle of that battery, like whether we can recover the metal and recycle. That work is also going on. And one of my colleagues, basically they are working on development of chemical through bio transformation, enzymatic reaction, because water pollution and sustainability is a major challenge. So we have a separate group where we are doing chemical transformation using enzymatic, and couple of technology has been developed and transferred to industry. Thank you.
You can give him a round of applause. Okay. If you listen to him carefully, you know, we obviously see Chandrayaan going to the moon on TV, but there are great scientists in India doing great work like in NCL, and some very interesting future technologies he talked about. And just one thought. Obviously, process intensification is a great area, but all of us need to leverage these wonderful resources, people in India, in our organizations, which will help us move forward. Now, let me invite our second panelist here. Setu, you've worked for a number of great organizations globally, which includes Roman Haas, which include Dow, now Celanese, which have a great track record of driving innovation in various product categories, various end markets. And what I would request you to educate us on is, how do you see opportunities, given India's unique needs, challenges, for innovation for these markets? And I'm sure your organizations are looking at these in their own way. What could we learn from the approaches that you've seen in your rich experience?
Yeah, thanks, Rupal. Yeah. So, thank you. I think firstly, the time is really great for India and the specialty chemical industry. I think in many different ways, I would say the stars are aligning. It's really kind of ours to take up and make it happen today, right? When you look at advantages, the industry is, especially the specialty chemical industry, has already done some really good work over the last, let's say, couple of decades. And if you even take by metrics of shareholder returns, I don't know if that's the right metric for this forum, but it is a metric. It's outperformed every other market that we can think of. So really, I think there's therefore a very strong base of being able to produce a very large variety of chemistries at different scales, which I think can play very nicely into where, the industry itself can grow, not just to serve domestic markets, but also international markets. I think there's therefore a strong base of people, talent as well, to kind of drive that along. If I take one has to look at needs in order to drive where you want to focus on. And so the theme of this session is sustainability, so let me talk a little bit about that. And when you think about what one can do in those areas, a couple of examples, right? There's a lot of focus on bio-based materials. And what can the industry do in that space? Some of it is making bio-based materials, but the other part that also is becoming increasingly important is how can you enable bio-based materials to then become more viable, more successful. If you take bioplastics, there's still a big gap between performance that's needed of bioplastics and what it can do today. And it's not just about designing bioplastics, but it's a lot about enabling them to work better. So I think are there innovations that India can come up with that will help some of that to happen. There's also a big need around PFAS. Indian fluorine industry is doing really well. If you take some companies that have taken up initiatives and they've taken up many things, I think there's focus there to try and work better and do more. The other theme is de-risking of supply chains, right? And I think that's where, again, there's a lot of potential for innovation to be done. If you take specialty polymers, there's lots of intermediates that are required, whether you take specialty polymers for coatings, adhesives, high performance plastics. And many of them are trade secrets. They're not easily available chemistries. People know what's required, but how to get there, I think, is a place where by partnering amongst yourself using the strengths, but also working with organizations like NCL, I think there's room to try and meet some of these requirements. Some are met by Western companies, Chinese companies have made progress today, but I think there's a lot to be done there. How can one succeed in something like that, right? I don't think it's just about developing molecules, unfortunately. I think what's needed there is really strong partnerships because you need to understand the application very well. For example, we had a partnership with a company and they knew the molecule, but really for make that molecule work for our application, the impurities had to be at a level that took 2 years to get right. But that partnership, working together, explaining what's needed, and then the commitment from the partner to make that work, I think got us there. And now we have alternate sources of these materials. So I think these are some of the things to think about, right? Really, I think if I were to summarize, there's lots of opportunity, but clearly identifying the needs, finding partners to work with so that you bounce ideas off each other, the requirements are done, and then investing in downstream. When I say downstream, in your company, people who know applications, not just the development side, but really how to make things work down on the ground. So.
Thank you, Setu, for your comments. I hope some of us go back with some ideas on what you could be thinking about, what your organizations could be thinking about, new areas, partnerships, needs of the world, which we can serve. Let me now bring in Dr. Momik. Thank you for joining us. I understand we have got a small Roman Haas club here. So Dr. Momik also has great experience working in technology areas in companies like Roman Haas, Momentive, Huntsman, of course, where he's working now. And throughout, he's done various things, which includes a bit of marketing, a lot of technology, NPD, and so on. Obviously, these companies have had systems to have very successful NPD programs. And can you enlighten us through some examples in your journey on how do we drive a successful NPD program, which can, and which could be something that people here can take away, because based on what I know, I think that is an area that we need to work on.
Sure. Thanks, Rupak, and it's a pleasure being here. So the key aspects for whatever I look for when we start a new product introduction process, for instance, a customer will come to you and ask you for something. But what I have basically made sure is always have a very good strategic marketing team, which really figures out what are the key value propositions for us and for the customer. Why will they buy? Why will they buy from us? What do we need to do so that others cannot come and replace us very easily? At some point, everybody gets replaced. However, how can we make sure that they don't replace us immediately or very quickly? So every place I have gone, it's been in a situation, Roman Haas being one of the exceptions, where they just didn't have a strategic marketing team. And so we had to build a strategic marketing team. I had to do that at Momentive. I had to do that here at Huntsman. And once you have that, and you can make sure that you are doing the right projects, because if you do the wrong projects, you spend a lot of time and it goes nowhere. That is a lot of opportunity cost that is lost. So you have to work on the right things. And then what we do is we need to make sure that all the functions, the key functions, are aligned within the business, meaning marketing, R&D, and sales. If all three are aligned and the sales guys are asking, "Kya mera product kahan hai yaar? Abhi tak kyun nahi hua hai?" That means the customer is pulling. Sometimes even the customers will call us very quickly that, "Why is it taking so long?" I know those projects are the key ones. Those are the ones we need to prioritize and make sure that we move. I've seen, we put together innovation boards, people call it stage gate reviews and so on. What you do there is you have all the functions present and everybody needs to make sure what they need to do and what do they need from the other functions to make it happen. When the sales guy, especially marketing and R&D, are usually pretty aligned when this system starts to work well. However, the sales guys are sometimes not aligned. When the sales guy starts to answer questions which the R&D or marketing guy should have answered, you know things are working well. You know that it's going to work well. And that is what I'm looking for. And there are, in my team, for instance, there are 6 different businesses. Some are working very well and some are not. So I spend most of my time where things are not working that well and making sure that the best practices get there. The other things that I try to do is have the metrics, the right metrics. And the metrics can be different for different things. I mean, most people will talk about vitality index, which is what % of your products are less than 5 years old of your total business. we do more what contribution margin, what percent contribution margin is from new products that are less than 5 years old instead of just sales, because margin is important, especially during times, polyurethanes is an oligopoly, so it can be a bit cyclical. So we try to make sure that we are measuring that, but there are some areas where I see things are just not moving fast enough. So then we started measuring the velocity of the projects going through the various stages and making sure that we start measuring. When you start measuring, you start improving. So we typically try to measure where we are heading. So those are the kind of things that we try to do. So there are financial metrics, there are speed metrics, there are basically metrics on how fast the product will actually die, because there are some projects which don't even make 5 years. That's not the best use of R&D time. Those are usually tech service projects. They shouldn't be really R&D projects. So that's another thing that you want to replace. Then, and lastly, I would say there is always a place, there should always be a place for very high differentiation and somewhat longer term projects, which truly are going to be game changers for you. What tends to happen in our industry is we tend to focus on the shorter term. Aaj kya hai, agle quarter mein kya ho raha hai, we think about the longer terms. Now with sustainability, we are being pushed to really think about the long term. And there are significant issues coming down. So for that, what we have tried to do, and 80% of my portfolio, 85%, is really now working on sustainable new products, or mitigating products that are really in bad shape from a sustainability standpoint. If they're good margin products, we don't want to lose them. At some point, we will lose them. And so that's another thing that we are now starting to focus on. We use something with industry, it's a known way of doing it, is called portfolio sustainability analysis. And we basically look at, which products are really challenged, and those are typically which have substances of concern in there, which need to be removed at some point because regulations will kill them. The next are somewhat exposed, then there are neutral products, and then there are really aligned products and star products, which are truly green products, which are recyclable. So when you work on systems like we do, which are cross-linked systems, it's more difficult to recycle. So one of the things, what we've tried to do now is add more and more recycled content. We have a product called Terol, where we're using bottle waste, PET bottle waste, and we can really make new polyols based on that bottle waste. Gives us a lower raw material cost and better margins, less carbon footprint, and recycled content. So it's a product. What we're trying to focus on is where will customers, either we can reduce the cost when we go more and more green, or where will the customers pay for if we go to a higher cost. And so currently we are only working on those type of products, but we are not ignoring complete recyclability, because at some point it will become important. Bio-based will also start becoming important, but by 2035, there'll be too much need for bio-based. Therefore, carbon capture will have to make up for what is not going to be available from a bio-based perspective. So these are the kind of things that we tackle on a regular basis and how things move. So basically, in summary, work on the right value propositions for you and for the customer. Make sure that you have the right touch points with the other functions to make sure that everybody is aligned. Have the right metrics so that you're measuring things where you want to improve. And from a sustainability standpoint, make sure that go right now where people are willing to pay, or where you can reduce the cost by still going more green. Because that's where you create more value while that gives you more differentiation, etc. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Momik, for so nicely distilling out years and years and decades of your experience. And what I thought, if we could capture what you said, is kind of a NPD technology roadmap framework, so nicely. And some interesting thoughts around aligning marketing R&D to hai, but then it's the sales and production people who create maximum entropy or anarchy. Aligning them is very important. And also about insights, and the fact that 80% of your energy is going into sustainable chemistries is very, very good to know, not only for me, but also where great companies of the world are looking. So I think some messages for us. Thank you very much. Our next person on the panel, this is not in any particular order though, Dr. Mayuk. He's got a lot of experience, Dr. Mayuk, in product development, in application development, working with customers, and I'm sure sorting out process, product, application problems. I heard from you a word which was not in my vocabulary. You know, we thought EQ was emotional coefficient, which is, but he said environment quotient. So I'm going to pick your brains on that, Dr. Mayuk. And you are a chemist, and I told you what all you worked on how do you apply green chemistry to therefore improve the environment quotient?
Okay, so let me start with a disclaimer. I always do that. The views are my own, may not reflect my company's views. I always like to start from the beginning. So just to give you a flavor of what green chemistry is, let me recite or narrate to you the 12 principles of green chemistry that Paul Anastas and John Warner have propounded in 1998. I'll just give you the bullets. One is prevention. Second is less hazardous chemical synthesis. Third is atom economy. Fourth is designing of safer chemicals. Fifth is design of energy efficiency. Seventh is use of renewable feedstocks. Eighth is reduced derivatives. Sixth is catalysis. 10th is design for degradation. 11 is real-time analysis for pollution prevention. And finally, it's an inherently safer chemistry for accident prevention. If one goes into depth of all these points, I have come to the conclusion that all these points are basically simple common sense for a chemical professional. When somebody is developing a process, he has to take all these things into consideration. Fortunately for me, I'm at the right place at the right time. My company has been doing green chemistry since its inception. So it has been our culture to do these things. But going further on to what green chemistry is all about, yesterday Rupak and I were talking about what I'm supposed to say, which I am at a loss always. So I mentioned the concept of E factor. That E factor means the environment factor. And there are some myth busters. For example, oil refining is the least polluting, followed by bulk chemicals, fine chemicals, and the elephant in the room is the pharma chemicals. They produce almost 25-30 times the effluents versus what is manufactured per kilo. So then the question comes, how do you do this efficiently? So I'll take the example of Sanjay, who spoke about continuous processing. There is this concept of flow chemistry that has come up, which has done really wonders for the pharma company. To name a few companies, I think it is Novartis and Merck who have come out with novel processes where in a box like this, at say maybe 130 liters capacity, they are able to manufacture what a 15-ton reactor would do. I may be wrong on the 15-ton, maybe it's 10 tons, but that is the difference. So this is where the innovation as far as chemicals is concerned should be driven. I'm also of the view, Rupak, that an R&D cannot work in a dome. In our organization, I always tell that the marketing team is our eyes and ears for the world. They come out with what they understand as customer needs. And then we devise our innovation matrix. It could be a springboard project or it could be a disruptive innovation. Both of these have an element of risk in terms of technology. And we believe that any new product should have, how should I say, unbridled life of 3 years for the innovator. By then, it may lose its innovation and there will be me toos. So those 3 years are important for us, and therefore the technology selection is also very important. That is how we revel in our innovation. And like I said, I mean, we have been practicing green chemistry since our inception. We are doing what very few companies in the country are doing. We are using oleochemistry as our base for manufacturing additives. So what oleochemistry is basically use of vegetable oils, which generally you use in your kitchens for cooking. So from day one, I know it's benign, safe, and then the next part is making the products and the processes safer. As far as we are concerned, in our area of where we manufacture our products, we were the first company to go for zero liquid discharge. So that was, I think, 10, 12 years ago. That concept was even unheard of by the regulators. So I had to, we had to really drive this process because there was no effluent discharge. And then they would ask, what are you doing with it? These are the kind of things we like to do in what is called green chemistry. As far as sustainability is concerned, we are as it is sustainable because the products that we make are biodegradable. The raw materials that we use are sustainable because they are renewable. And we are focusing on customer base which need these kind of things like polymer additives. Some of the products we make cannot be made by any other chemistry but this. Am I losing time? Go ahead, please. We also look at a little distant future, maybe 5, 7 years down the line, because that is where you have to start your first baby step as far as the innovation is concerned. In our kind of chemistry, the process of approval and regulation is so long. Sometimes I've seen my colleagues lose hair. Anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. So we have to factor for this kind of R&D. But all this is done with the fact that we are a forward-thinking, innovation challenging, and green chemical company.
Thank you, Dr. Muk. First of all, I noticed that amongst the panel, you are the most digitally advanced. I'm still using paper.
No, it went blank.
Challenges of technology. Yes. And the other thing he said on another lighter note, you see, he said R&D people should not work in a dome. I was just thinking that I have just seen a lot of R&D centers which always construct a dome. But, also you see things like ZLD, which they did more than 10 years ago. Indian industry is doing great work, and I can tell you, ZLD is not something that Europe does well. I know that for sure. I'm saying some people may do. So great to see a lot of good work happening and outlining the principles, which I'm sure a great takeaway for us. Our next expert on the team, Dr. Ashwini. You said you are passionate about green technologies. You are passionate about plastic pollution and the harm that it causes to human health. And your work is also related to green technologies. So it gives me an opportunity to therefore ask you, can you throw some light on emerging green technologies that you've been working on, which will help us and our industry reduce the environment impact?
Thanks. And probably I am the person who is odd here because I am from a microbiology background, biotechnology. not per se from a chemical industry. So I'm from biotechnology background and biotechnology company, and a company who develops technologies for sustainable products. So sustainability is, I would say, is in DNA of Praj, and so we had been working on fuels for many years, and then it stuck that this is not the only field where we can make an impact. So there's a huge area of materials where there is a need of uh, green products, and that is how we started looking into various products or array of products where we can enter, and then we realized that plastics is the area where exactly we can make some impact. And what attracted us is there are few things which I would like to point out. Uh, Carbon emissions we had been talking about and raised to net zero, that is one thing. The other facet, very important facet in terms of plastic is pollution. So the pollution waste reduction and management is playing extremely important role. So when we say impact of global warming and flooding and everything, it's also because of the environmental changes, but also many a times it's man-made because of the clogged drainages and everything, and that's only and only because of the plastic waste that we are generating. And the third important aspect is its health impacts. So very recently UN has published a report on effect or impact of chemicals released or leached out from plastic and its impact on health. So there are like these facets attracted us to work on the area of bioplastics. In bioplastics there is an array. So there is one area where with the help of biotechnology, with the help of fermentation, you make the products which are, can say, drop-in chemicals. So you make either the intermediates or the entire polymer from bio-based feedstock with fermentation, and then you make like PET, so bio-based PET, bio-based, so there only one component comes from bio-based, or bio-based P or bio-based PP. The other basket is on which we are working and interested in is completely bio-based product, which we can call it as functionally advantaged materials. So there it comes like polylactic acid and polyhydroxyalkanoids. So these are the we can say correct molecules which can fall in the basket of bioplastics, because these are coming from bio-based feedstocks. They are produced using fermentation and they are degradable. Because when you look at the first basket, though they are produced from bio-based materials and bio-based feedstocks, finally they are the same as that they are coming from the fossil-based material, and they are non-degradable. The problem here, what we want to solve is not only reduction in carbon emission, but also the waste generation and the green product, which won't have any impact on human health. So polylactic acid, polyhydroxyalkanoids, and then there are a few more things which have all these characteristics. And then the third basket is again coming from fossil based, but they have a property of biodegradability like PBAT. So currently when we say bioplastic, all three products are being produced world over, and probably all three are important because surely the volume of plastic market is so big, and the bioplastic that is getting produced globally is even less than 1%. Out of 400 million tons that plastic is getting produced, bioplastic is produced hardly 2.2 million tons. So it's sky is a limit, but there is also a limitation of feedstock, because how much feedstock we can divert to materials is also a limitation. Currently, of course, hardly 0.5% of feedstock is getting diverted for making plastics. So I hope there won't be any debate like previously there used to be a debate between food versus fuel, and sometimes in between food versus material. But if you look at the total food material and agri feedstock that is getting produced globally, less than 1% is currently getting diverted towards plastics. So even if it goes towards 5%, it is not going to make much matter, because if the total food grains, if we see, more than 50% gets diverted towards feed and not towards food. So we are not actually diverting the food towards materials. That's one thing. Another important point which I will like to point is the waste generation, that why we started working and what is the main driver towards it is biodegradability. Of course, there are certain chemicals or certain bioplastics which need industrially compostable facilities. But the best part is they are compostable. It may take probably just 3 or 4 months and they are compostable. So the right sector that one needs to look at is the material or the all the products which are used for less than 3 years or less than 5 years. Because if you look at this plastic bottle, right from the resin preparation up to the point that we will drink this, it's less than 1 year. And this bottle is going to stay here for millions and millions of years. So where we are going, what we are doing with, is this a right use of resources? So that's the main thing that, that we are looking at. I do agree with the point that made by someone that there are some challenges in the functionality, and I will like to take this opportunity to say that we are exploring partners to develop more and more functionality for bioplastics, because polylactic acid is to a large extent established product and there are many applications being developed, but bioplastics like polyhydroxyalkanoates is still new product. By the way, it's a home compostable plastic, but because of this very nature of compostability, it also has certain limitations from a functionality point of view. So we are looking for partners who can develop applications for this. And the last part I will like to touch upon is the end of life scenario, which may be of interest to this audience. Is the new concept that is coming world over and especially originating from Europe is the mass balance approach and the labeling of products. Because when we look at any bioplastic, the main problem is that how do I know that this is a real bioplastic, how it gets segregated, and then how it goes at a right place where it can get degraded. And then there is also a problem that plastic industry says that if another or a bioplastic kind of thing comes, then they can't recycle the things. So the first thing is labeling of the products, and for that the new concept or the new idea is coming is mass balance approach, where this is applicable for everything. The purely bioplastic or purely bio-based material, as well as a new concept they have coined is bio-attributed materials, where in a chemical product, even if a 10% of bio-based material is coming, if it is certified through this channel, then you can call it as a bio-attributed material. And finally it goes into the what you can say a new concept of digitally product passport. So DPP that Europe is coming up with, it's kind of a QR code, and once you scan it you can see that how much is the chemically synthesized, how much is recycled and how much is bio-based. So this is all about or the labeling part, and then there is a segregation and composting part. So all these things if you put together, of course this is exciting time for bioplastics and bio-based materials, not only from a sustainability point of view, also from human health point of view. And because of all these new concepts, chemical industry is really also warming up. Otherwise, chemical industry was like at arm's length from the biotech company or biotech sector, that bioplastic is something different. We have nothing to do with bioplastics. But because of these new concepts and the new functionalities, basically all these materials are bringing, even the chemical industry is warming up to this idea.
Thank you, Dr. Ashwini. You said chemical industry is warming up to the idea of understanding biology. In fact, very interestingly, a lot of the future of the chemical industry lies in biology. We are already talking about biomimicking, and a number of processes will be biological processes, so next generation engineers, chemical engineers will have to become comfortable with biology. So thank you for those insights. They say that in the relay race, the person who takes the last relay is actually going to deliver the finishing shot. So coming to you to do that, Alok, sorry for coming to you last but not the least. You've got diverse experience, and you said, I very interestingly picked up a word where you said passion for pushing the boundaries of synthetic chemistry or chemistry in general. Now, that is also a need of the hour. So in simple words, it is about leveraging chemistry to deliver value, to create sustainable products. What are some thoughts that you would like to leave with this audience as to what they may have not looked at as openly in adopting or utilizing, leveraging chemistry to deliver this value and create better products?
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Hello. Yeah, thanks for giving this opportunity, and it's a wonderful forum where a lot of eminent scientists are sitting here, and I would direct my say thought process more towards the young generation from whom we have a lot of expectations in the coming year. So when I say pushing the boundaries, and what I was hearing just now, that where should be our focus when we are doing research and development or selecting the new products. That thought process was something which went through in my mind also during my journey of almost more than 33 years in research and development. So what I learned that the certain words when we hear like sustainability or these are things, what you rightly pointed out, even our Vedas, they talked about sustainability. And this is nothing new as such, but with respect to time, we keep hearing some buzzwords, some new words keep coming. So coming back to what I learned while working on organic synthesis, new molecule development, the first thing I observed was that whatever we do in research and development, if it is purpose driven, then it's going to hit the market or say the customers at right time or at certain time in future. So one way of looking at R&D project can be that what you rightly pointed out, that it should be perfectly aligned with the marketing, R&D and the sales and marketing team. I also came across situation where I think that there should be a sort of alignment between the marketing, sales, R&D and of course the investors also, because the investors' risk appetite is something which is there, which also plays a very critical role in delivering the right products to the market. And also, apart from risk appetite, another thing is the patience, patience to work on new products. Because there can be some Me Too type product where you can be very fast, but there can be some long-term projects which takes time. But then sometime when we are totally working with the sales and marketing teams, perspective, sometimes we get into the trap of Me Too type chemistries, where we waste more energy than what we could have done better by working on something altogether new. Another challenges which I came across while working on these different chemistries was that sometimes regulatory pressures kill some beautiful molecules. These molecules are really very beautiful. If we use them properly, we can do wonders. I quote one example. I started my career with Defense Research and Development Establishment. That was a time when people were talking about methyl isocyanate, and Bhopal gas tragedy had happened, and we were working on the projects to find out what was the main cause for the death of so many people, how we could have avoided it, then making products, doing thermal degradation studies of those products. But that was a time when we were working also on using the same molecule to develop certain beautiful molecules called carbamates. And the objective was how to save the lives of the defense troops when they get exposed to the chemical warfare agents. So the same chemistry, same molecule, if you talk about, say, some of the NGOs, the way they are working today, or if you talk about some gurus from the regulatory fields who decide which molecules are good, which are not good, these kind of molecules would have got killed long back. But they are basically the molecules. You can use them in the right way or wrong way, both. So that was my first learning when I was with Defense R&D, that chemistry should be purpose-driven. And you can find the purpose. It can be for, say, sustainability or low cost, economy of molecules. Those kind of things can be done. When I entered into agrochemical field, almost for 17 years I was in agrochemicals. And there also we saw that if you know the chemistry, or if you go to the molecular level of chemistry, then you can do better justice to these molecules. There can be systemic agrochemicals or pesticides. There can be contact type of agrochemicals. Now you have to see the environmental fate and the management of those molecules, how they are going to survive in the nature, what is going to be the lifespan of those molecules to be in the nature. So we were working on those kind of chemistries. So same chemistry, organic chemistry, going into carbamate chemistry for defense use. Another side working on agrochemicals and seeing how these molecules can be used in the right way so that the environmental fate management can be done in a better way. So coming back here, I want to highlight this point that while working on these projects, another interesting feature which or the experience which I had was working with the cross-functional teams. If I was not working with the teams of, say, biochemistry background or toxicology side people, then synthetic chemistry alone wouldn't have been so interesting. So that was another area when we say we push the boundaries of synthetic chemistry. We had gone beyond the synthetic chemistry, entered into the domain of toxicology, biochemistry, and biotechnology. That interface was very beautiful. When we started working with these people across the functional barriers, then we learned that how these molecules can be used in more judicious way. That was another interesting case which I learned from my experience, and I would like to convey to young generation that don't type yourself. Don't think that you are a pharma person, you are an agro person, you are somebody from biochemistry. Chemistry is chemistry, and keep expanding your horizon. Another case was when I was working for printing inks. I was with specialty printing inks. During those days, a common man would like to eat or take their lunch wrapped in a newspaper, and very cheap quality inks were being used in the offset printing of the newspaper. And that was a time when we were working on the soya-based or soya seal kind of products. And the objective was that even if a common man is using a newspaper to wrap the food, at least they should not get the toxic material inside their stomach. So, as I said, it should be purpose-driven chemistry. And you get a lot of opportunities while working with the chemical molecules. If you really want to be sustainable, you can play your role there. Something very similarly happened during the REACH regulations. Again, the synthetic chemistry was quite helpful in reducing the cost of registration of these molecules. So it may be a regulatory field, and it can be a chemist who are working together. and you can still make it more economical while, say, registration of these products. So these were the areas where I say that if you go a little beyond your, say, domain, you can still do a lot of interesting things related to sustainability, economy, and society. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Dr. Kullar, to highlight necessity leads to innovation. Necessity also will make sure that we'll innovate. That's on a positive note. And also the point that it is at the interfaces where innovation happens, whether it is plant and sales, sales and customer, or whatever. I think there is friction, but that is where innovation happens as well. But also, most importantly, thank you for now letting us know that we can eat the vada pav safely. Because, now hopefully people are using those inks which are safe, because, coming to Mumbai, we cannot not eat the vada pav. No, it very interestingly how somebody thinks about problems and challenges of the common man and how good solutions can be found. I don't think we have, unfortunately, time for questions. And I'm not going to do the unjust thing of trying to summarize what speakers have beautifully narrated. Honestly, it is kind of a framework. You could actually print a booklet out of it in terms of what all we heard from the panel. And it was a great privilege for me to hear all of you out from your rich, great experience across industries, technologies, etc. And I'm sure all of you here enjoyed and had some takeaways from this session. Thank you very much for listening to us patiently. That's all. And thank you very much to the panel. Thank you to Praveen for organizing this.